Wrong is right, and right is left. Before I delve into exactly what it is that I'm going to talk about today, I'd like each and every one of you to take a moment and just predefine some of your views and opinions on a few topics. That's racism, sexism, homophobia, the current refugee situation, and any other points of discussion within our societies today. And I'd just like to preface everything that I'm going to talk about today with the idea that I'm not going to attack anyone's opinions or perspectives, because I have two questions I believe to be instrumental in progression going forward, both as individuals and as a society. My first question: how do we know we're right? And my second one: what is it that we're doing wrong? But if we put those aside for the moment, I like to look at how it is that we develop our opinions. Now, I've found three key ways, and I'm sure there's more, but they're the ones that I'm going to focus on, because they're the ones that I find are most important. They're the plot holes in idea development. The first one is by a lack of knowledge. Take, for instance, a blind man. His name's Harry, but that's not important. But in his life, he's never seen the color red. And because of this, he doesn't actually know what it is entirely. So he asks us, what is the color red? So we describe it to him on a metaphorical basis. We say the color red is the sun as it sets. It's a heart on Valentine's Day, and it's the hearth of a fire. And that's what he'll know the color red to be. But red's much more than that. Red is also the color of rage, and it's the color of anger. It's the color of the blood that ran the fields of Cannae after Hannibal slaughtered the 80,000. Because the color red is also power. My old year coordinator, Mr. Castiglione, he once told us a story of when his father was younger, and he saw a black man for the first time. And he said, and I directly quote, he ran for his life. And whilst running from someone solely on the basis of their ethnicity is fundamentally racist, ask the question, can we blame the man? Because if we look at what he knew about this person, on a personal level, he knew nothing. All it was that he knew was some stereotypical, generalized view of who this man was. And in the given situation, with the given information, he made a decision which he believed was right. And for that, I don't think we should blame him. I believe the people that we should be blaming are those that know the entirety of a situation, but decide to neglect half of it to suit their own personal agendas. Now, the second way I've come across is simply by nature. In the Stanford prison experiment, 12 students were selected to be the prisoners, and they were given absolute power over the 12 students. 12 students were selected to be the guards, and they were given absolute power over the 12 students who were selected to be the prisoners. And those prisoners were stripped of all personal freedoms. Now, by the end of the experiment, it was found that the guards had started to settle into their roles of power. They started to abuse the prisoners using techniques much like similar to real prisons today and to World War II concentration camps. And even the prisoners had settled into their role of powerlessness. And when one prisoner was sent to solitary confinement, and the rest of the prisoners were asked if they would give up their blankets in order to free this one prisoner, none of them said yes. And it's because we're weak, because we're human, that we're corruptible. And if we draw from the old adage that power corrupts, but absolute power corrupts absolutely. In studies on the bystander effect, it's found that when there are more people around when a given situation takes place, it is less likely for any one of them to actually act. I know when I'm at my locker and a teacher asks me to pick up a piece of rubbish, something so simple, I tend to pawn off the responsibility onto the person that's actually nearer to it, regardless of whether or not it actually needs to be picked up. In the ashke experiments, the participants were given 2 cards, one with 1 line on it and one with 3 lines on it, labeled A, B, and C. And when they were asked which line corresponded to the length of the line on the other card, the 7 Confederates within the 8 participants, or so-called participants, lied unanimously and obviously. And because of this, the participants, the true participants, the 1 out of the 8, were given an option. Either they would conform to the majority opinion, or they would have to stray. And it was found that 32% conformed most of the time or all of the time. 75% conformed at least once, and 25%, only a quarter, a mere quarter, never conformed. It's because we're human that we do these things sometimes. And the reason why they did it, they said either they felt the group had more knowledge than them, or they felt as if they would be ridiculed for having a differing opinion from the majority. If you take me, for example, I was at a friend's party recently, and it was a good party. And I was pretty content sitting by the fire. But as people started to get up and go towards the dance floor, I was faced with an option. Either I conformed and went with them, or I just sat by the fire where I was nice and warm, because it was a pretty miserable night. So, because of this, I had a fear of being ridiculed under the idea that I was a loner sitting by the fire alone. So I decided to just get up and stand around them, despite what I knew I would be more comfortable doing. It's because I'm human. It's because we're all human. Sometimes we just make decisions that aren't necessarily beneficial or right. The third way is by false knowledge. From a young age, boys are often told that pink and dolls are girly, and that blue and trucks is what suits their gender. A part of the Nazi regime was the so-called educating of the youth, in which young German boys were told that Jewish people were rats, and they believed it. In modern media, young girls are often presented the ideal body type, and this ludicrous idea has seen the rise in bulimia, anorexia, and body shaming. And the media, it plays an important part in the development of our views nowadays, but we must be cautious. Because as Malcolm X once said, the media is the most powerful entity on the earth. It can make the innocent guilty and the guilty innocent, because it controls the mind of the masses, and that is true power. But those are the 3 ways I've focused on for how we develop our views. But let me just ask you, what is an opinion? I find that people have some grandier delusion of the idea that an opinion is right or wrong. But I don't see it as this. I find that opinions are gray areas, room for improvement, in fact. And I believe that the information we base our opinions off of, that's what is right or wrong. That's what is incorrect or correct. And I think another thing within our society is the idea of complacency in our views. We tend to think that because we're on left-wing or right-wing politics, the other side has nothing to contribute, but often they do. Mark Twain put it well when he stated, "In all matters of opinion, the rule is perfect. Our opposition is insane." I think that holds true. But another way we become complacent is in the idea that the majority opinion is what holds as true, but that's not the case. Mark Twain also once put it, when we find ourselves on the side of the majority, it's time to pause and reflect. And if we reflect on past majority opinions, we can see that in America, slavery was considered the norm. In Africa, apartheid, just how it was. Concentration camps, death camps, and genocide were all considered justifiable in the eyes of the Nazi regime, but today we condemn them. But if in that time they believed that they were right, what they were doing was right, and we condemn it today, it begs to ask the question, what is it that we're doing that we will be judged for doing tomorrow? But see, when we are faced with someone else's opinion, a differing opinion, I don't think we should just tell someone they're wrong. I believe we should show them why they're wrong. We should prove to them with statistics, facts, figures, and sources that we can say are truthful. And then that's how we uniquely define our opinion as right or wrong. At the beginning, I asked every one of you to define some of your views on a few topics. I beg you now, take one of them. Go home and research. Research to the point where you know everything about that topic, every little detail, every fact, and every figure, till you've explored every nook and every cranny. Because that's the way we progress as individuals and as societies. And there's two questions which I think should be asked in every single thing that we do going forward. My first question is, how do I know I'm right or wrong? And my second one, which should be applied to every single decision we make, because it is fundamental. What is it that I do today that I'll be judged for doing tomorrow? Thank you.